Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. In this, our 5th season, we are looking at Joe Johnston's 2011 film Captain America, The First Avenger. I'm Andy Nelson from the Next Reel Film Podcast.
And I'm Pete Wright. Credit to Pete Wright.
Today we're talking about Minute 116, which begins with a trio of casting agents and ends with a pan away from a soldier throwing a grenade. Joining us on the show today, we are thrilled to have returning credits champion Tommy Metz III, director of 30 Nights of Sex to Save Your Marriage. Hello, Tommy.
Hi, I'm sorry I stepped on my own credit, but it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me for the credit sequence.
The credits champion, yes.
What did I do this for before?
You have covered more minutes of credits with us.
This is
Iron Man.
Iron Man. That's right.
Did you? I don't think you ended up joining us on Thor, but
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, these credits.
Tom, I have to imagine, of the Marvel movies credits,
Yeah.
I think that these are your favorites.
The credits? Well, here's a fun fact. There's a chance I never saw this movie. Is that possible? I don't remember much of this movie.
Like, even now, joining us for the show?
Well, I mean, because I just watched the first half of it, as I explained off mic, because I couldn't get my act together. And I don't remember almost any of it. Is it possible that I hadn't joined? Because I saw Iron Man, and then I think I saw Iron Man. When did Iron Man 2? It doesn't matter, because I don't remember a lot of this stuff. But this is very up my alley, because it's not terribly superhero-y.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Well, you only have seen the first half. Just wait.
Oh, does it go? Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of blue. There's blue goo. So much blue shiny,
guns.
spray goo, splody goo.
Yes, I have seen some of that.
I think
And did you
would
see
remember
Red
that.
Skull take his face off yet? Has
No,
Hugo
but-
Weaving ripped his skin off? Okay, so you
No,
haven't seen that
he's
yet.
still looking weird, and he's having weird pictures painted of him. That's all I know.
I love thinking that we're talking with somebody who potentially has only seen half of Captain
I
America:
know.
The First Avenger.
I don't know.
My one job was to watch
I don't
this
know if
movie.
This actually makes it better or dramatically worse.
I think-
We'll see.
I am chock full just of observations from the first half, because I really did a deep dive in the first half. And remember, you only signed me up to do this. Oh, I don't know, months ago. Where does the time go? Literally day by day. That's how it
Yeah,
goes.
that's where.
Yes.
Well, okay, so you've seen half of Captain America.
Yeah.
So, thoughts? I'd love to know what you were thinking, because you said you enjoyed kind of the aesthetic. This is obviously the periodist of period Captain America films that MCU films that we've had, where the whole thing is in the 40s. So
It's so periody, but I realized that my threshold for like that cliche of like hats and stickball, it's all in here, and I love it. Like I love that aesthetic of the 40s and how we've just decided that everyone looked the exact same and everything was an alley and everyone wore hats. So I'm really enjoying that. I am surprised how shooty it is.
Oh, okay.
I guess I forgot that Captain America, was he just like running around with guns a lot? Like in the comic books? Like he has a gun. I thought that was like Black Widow's territory.
He moves away from guns once he really kind of takes the shield up and starts using that. That kind of becomes his thing. I think there were more guns possibly in some of the earlier comics, but I think by the time I'm speaking probably out of turn, some of our other guests who read more of the comics probably clarified this, and I'm probably messing it up now, but my recollection is that once kind of he came back into the fold in the 60s with Stan Lee and all them bringing him to join the Avengers and stuff, that it was pretty much just all S.H.I.E.L.D. by that
Got
point.
it. Well, because it makes sense, like when because where I got to is the big prison break. And so now they're shooting blue lasers. That feels so much more, that feels so much more Marvel-y than Tommy guns. And there's like a lot of people shot in the head in the beginning. What is this?
We've talked about how this is possibly the bloodiest of the Marvel films, because
Yes.
later in the film, which you haven't seen, there is a point where they're fighting on a little drop plane that came off of the big airplane.
Okay.
And Captain America and one of the Hydra pilots are hanging on as the third character, another Hydra pilot, is flying it straight up into the air. and the hydro pilot, who's hanging on for dear life, slips and falls through the propellers, and you just see a cloud of red dust. It's not really dust. Cloud of red drops.
Red mist.
Red mist. Yes, appear behind the plane. And that's like something that you just don't get a lot in the Marvel films.
No, that is very surprising. I guess maybe they're leaning into that Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones kind of aesthetic.
Yeah, it felt that way.
Okay.
Right.
One thing that I think is really funny is you actually got incredibly close to what we affectionately called the John Hughes ending, or I should say Pete ended up calling it the John Hughes ending, which is like minutes away from where you are from the prison break. Like it goes through a prison break and Captain America frees everybody. He confronts Red Skull, who tears his face off and reveals the Red Skull.
Got it.
The reason he's named Red Skull. And then they blow the factory up and Captain America walks all the troops back to the base, and it feels literally like the end of the movie in the middle of the movie. And I kind of wish you got that far.
Yeah, like crane up over the crowd. Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
That would have been actually a satisfying end to chapter 1 of your viewing of Cap. And I think you would have appreciated it because it includes a lot of walking in the woods, which you're a noted supporter of.
Yeah.
And so...
No, I literally ended on a countdown. That's how terrible. He just flipped destroy the base switches that I said time to go talk about this movie. So annoying. You knew I was going to do something.
Can we just set the stage a little bit? Because for those who think that you are like a noted antagonist to this show by showing up without having watched, can you just set the stage for where you stand on the Marvel and superhero movies in general?
Yes, I have a lot of respect for them. I do not enjoy them a ton. I've never grew up being a superhero guy. My closest superhero was Batman, who is very famous. He's rich. He's just rich. That's his superpower. He's rich and he looks around a lot and he says things like, Martha! And so I always loved that more, like the opposite of Superman, any of that. I read scary comics. So while I say I respect them, well, no, I do. I really do respect them. And I think that the care, I was blown away living vicariously in the movie when they all showed up on your left. Which movie was that?
Avengers Endgame.
Avengers Endgame. That was like, I started crying in the theater and I didn't really care, but I couldn't imagine how much it meant to so many people. And they really are doing a great job. Case in point, whatever is still happening over at DC, who just can't seem to get out of their own way. I still to this day don't know what Black Adam is, and it freaks me out. So the care of the different phases, and it's Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige, who credit observation number 1. Ready? Chris Evans, 2 assistants. Kevin Feige, 1.
Yeah.
Chris Evans needs 2 assistants, and Kevin Feige's just hanging out with Jonathan, and both of their assistants are named Jonathan.
Well, Evans has the hair.
it's just
one
a
is
follicle
just
assistant.
for it's the hair, it's the follicle assistant.
Yeah.
They didn't have enough characters to put follicle in there, so it's just an assistant.
Yeah, so generally these movies aren't really for me, and I've really kind of dropped off. I was seeing them pretty regularly because we were doing them all on the film board, and that sort of really thrust me into that. I like ones that I like the Doctor Strange ones that some other people don't like. I don't know. I don't care for big boss battles. I'm lost in a lot of the story architecture. I've never to this day understood a single post or mid-credit sequence thing where they like open it, they're like, I found a shoe, and the entire audience is like, wow. And I'm like, what? I call it I've told you on this before, I call it the Darnell moment, because I immediately call my friend Darnell and say, what was this shoe? And he's like, okay. So Hamburger Man has this big he gets me this
Hamburger Man.
Yeah, I think there was a Hamburger Man in there. Yeah, but so this aesthetic I should have seen. This one is more for me, because it's really just like running around and punching people, and that's fun.
Are you, in general, would you say a fan of Joe Johnston? Like, are you a fan of things like The Rocketeer, October Sky?
October Sky, I think, would be the one this feels October Sky-ish compared to like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Did he do Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
Yep.
Or did I make that up? Yeah. I wonder if that was like one of the reasons that he was given this, is because it has that sort of Spielberg-ish eye for nostalgia, low light kind of stuff, which is interesting.
Yeah. We've talked about how it feels it's tapped into kind of a lot of that aesthetic that he did in films like The Rocketeer, which takes place during the same time period, and October Sky. And, he came up with the Lucas and Spielberg team working over at ILM. So obviously had kind of a thread with them and kind of their sorts of storytelling. So, he's an interesting filmmaker to tackle this project and bring that aesthetic to it, which I think generally worked for a lot of people.
It definitely did for me. There is one thing that I every once in a while would just keep giggling about. Like, I get it. He's a small guy. Like the first Chris Evans, because they film him in ways you wouldn't ever film a person. Like he's sitting on a chair and like his head is barely in the bottom third of the screen. And you're like, well, you would lower the camera. He's not next to like Hagrid the horror, like with Hagrid from like you would lower the camera. It's just weird. And I get it. Like, he's getting, get kicked on and stuff like that. And so that all makes sense, but it is kind of funny. And it is legitimately impressive.
Yeah.
Like putting his face on Scrawny McGee. But I feel like they maybe lean into it a little hard every once in a while, where he's just like, oh boy. And like taking up on a stool at a diner. So I kind of enjoyed that. And then when Poppin' Fresh Dough, when he comes out of the machine, I was like, okay, now we're doing it.
There he is.
Yeah.
It's Poppin' Fresh,
It's Poppin' Fresh.
Man.
He's had plenty of time to rise.
Yep.
I don't know if I should say that. But anyway.
That form email said this was a family show. I thought it was really cool, and this is another reason why there's a chance I never saw it, how much Tony Stark's dad is in it. Like that he was there for the creation of it. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff makes me wish I was less of a Scrooge about this stuff, because I bet I love that through line, and I bet that would be really fascinating had I understood it. But if I saw this movie, I don't think I would have understood who that was or what was going on.
And so I'm guessing you also didn't watch the Agent Carter TV show, because that had kind of a continuation with Peggy Carter with Howard Stark. They were all kind of in it. And it was 40s era without really kind of all the superhero stuff. It was just kind of spy stories.
Got it. I remember, I didn't see Agent Carter, but I remember liking Winter Soldier. Yeah. I like that, because that was just like a Cold War thriller.
Right.
That was like a Tom Clancy, if I remember that correctly. And I really liked that a lot.
With some really strong people who can jump real high.
real high.
Yeah.
And really know how to take a fall.
Yeah.
Jack Ryan's not quite there yet. But.
Yeah.
I like it because I brought up the Poppin' Fresh Dough scene. I like that they have to fill him with blue light and then infuse him with vitamins. They have like, it's so 1940s to be like, and then we will punch him with Flintstone chewables. It's just like, it's a Vita Ray. I thought that was so great. I was hoping there would be like one button that said Vim and one that said Vigor. They just keep pressing them back and forth. That felt a bit Vita Ray.
Too much Vim! Get more vigor in there!
More vigor!
I thought that was really funny.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I do think, Tom, I'm going to lean in on that. I think you should absolutely finish the movie. That is what I think you should do.
I'm going to
finish the movie.
Because I had to rent it. I don't have Disney Plus, so I rented it for today. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you got to watch it today and see all the bluey, gooey stuff, and that'll be really fun. And the plane, because I think you'll have some real comments on the plane. Wish we could talk about those, but...
Hey, I came here to talk about how many assistants Chris Evans has.
Yes, yes, you did.
I was not assigned a viable
Tom
minute.
Metz understood the assignment.
Yeah. That's right. All right. Well, speaking of credits, I guess we should jump into some of them. Actually, we are still in the point of the credits. My first question for both of you is, do you like this style of credits where oftentimes they'll pull the opening credits off of the beginning of the film and they'll kind of have a scene at the end of the film, which is kind of like all the art and the cool style designed credits and then roll into the credits? Do you like seeing those sorts of credits, like the really well-designed credits and how they play out?
When they're at the end? What is the reason for that? Is it so we can just dive right into the movie?
I think that's why a lot of filmmakers is you don't have to sit there. Like, I mean, you watch, you put on Casablanca or something and you're watching credits for 5 minutes
sure.
Before the movie starts. And I don't know. I don't mind the opening credits. I know some people really just like, I just want to see the movie. I don't want to sit through all these names.
I like credits in the beginning because it's sort of, especially if you're in the theater, it's just I'm an old man, but it's just like a part of it for me. It's sort of like if they just play a little bit of music and the credits and the font choice gets me in the mood for that movie.
Yeah.
Versus it sort of being like a smack in the face. But I love propaganda. I hate propaganda. Propaganda is terrible, but I love propaganda imagery. Actually, in college, because I'm the world's biggest weirdo, I actually had old propaganda posters on my wall instead of like the inevitable Pulp Fiction poster. I had one
or Scarface, right?
Scarface. Yeah, there was this one. It was my favorite one. It was a woman, and she was sort of dressed in a sailor's costume. And she was like, I wish I were a man because then I'd fight for the U.S. Navy. And I thought that was just like a weird way to get around it. So I love this credit sequence. The beginning of this with all the names and all the different famous, and the fact that they used legitimate propaganda with Rosie and other things, which is kind of neat.
I, love these credits. I wish I don't like the credit scroll. I want all the credits to be just a massive amount of work for the animators to the very bitter end. More planes and propaganda, 3D stereoscopic propaganda pictures. I think they're really, really fun. I definitely don't like credits up front. I want to be slapped in the face hard. Like, just give me the movie, a nice, elegant intro into the movie without the credits. Save them at the end. But I also am a huge fan of mid and post credit sequences. I wish classics had more credit sequences. Double Indemnity. Show me a tie-in to a potential sequel after the credits roll. Like, I want every movie to have credits because I actually like watching credits, but I also like getting a treat for watching the credits.
I see.
Give me a little kiss for sticking around and watching to the very end. So I'm a real fan with the kind of evolution of credits and pushing them to the end, making them more robust, and saving a little bit of story that is a nice teaser for something else, or a coda to the film itself at the end. It doesn't have to be a sequel teaser. It can just be like, hey, here's a little bit more. Here's just a bite. I'm a real fan. I'm a real bull.
You're all in on credits.
I'm all in on credits.
That's fantastic.
I did this whole show with Andy just to get to these minutes, and I can't believe we've only mentioned assistants so far.
He's been waiting. We finally here, and we still haven't talked about him. So,
oh my goodness,
Pete, you're gonna love the mid-credit sequence in She Said. It's just a phone rings and someone picks it up and goes, he did what? And then it goes right back to the credits.
Oh, all right. Well, do you want to talk about names first, or do you want to talk about propaganda?
Propaganda. Yes.
All right. So we get a whole bunch of fantastic art that, as Tommy already said, these were pulled from real pieces of World War II propaganda. I don't have the artists for all of them, but I do have the taglines and slogans that went with almost all of them. There's one that I couldn't quite find, and I'm not quite sure where they got it from. But first thing we see when we're looking at our casting is, I believe we talked about this a little bit last time, Pete, but it's a sailor, and he's holding a bag. And what it says on the poster is, if you tell where he's going, he may never get there.
Oh, loose lips.
I love that one so much.
Yeah. But look at his face. Like, the funniest thing about it is, like, he's so happy, like, to be getting shipped overseas. And it's like such a scary message that goes along with it.
This is Daniel. He's already dead. You're like, why?
It's I don't know. I question it a little bit, but I get what they're doing. They're like, this is a happy-go-lucky sailor, and he's going to go serve for our country, but you're going to kill him because you can't shut up. Calling Aunt Marge over in Switzerland Guess where Johnny's going? Oh, so next up, when we see Chris Evans' name, it's actually an airplane. It's got like some patriotic writing on it and stuff. But this is actually, from what I can tell, the whole front part of the plane is actually just created by the team who did the credits. It's actually when we pan up to the pilot who's leaning out of the cockpit looking back. That's actually what largely the art print is, plus a little bit of that little star that we have on it. And this says, "Keep him flying" by War Bonds.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, everything's about the war bonds.
War bonds.
Many war bonds, yeah.
I've never understood what war bonds or victory gardens are. Can you explain them to me, please?
But a war bond is basically something that it's a bond that you could buy from the government. It's a security, so they're holding your money and they get to use that money for the war. And then after a certain period of time, you can then cash it in with some interest or whatever. But
got it. Okay.
It's a way for the government to get additional money,
right?
As they needed it during the war.
The Victory Garden, I thought, was the thing that they encouraged everybody to plant victory gardens in their own backyards for fruits and vegetables and such to ease the strain on supply chain for food.
Got it. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that. So, yeah, anyway, war bonds, we talked about that a lot in this movie because of the musical scene when Steve is selling war bonds.
That's fun how long that sequence goes for. Like, it seems to go for minutes. Did you cover that
montage?
USO show for like over and over and over again?
We were singing Star Spangled Man, which we're going to be doing here because now we get to do it again in the credits. We were singing that song. It felt like for weeks because it never ended. Ended. But it's fun. I like that. It's Alan Menken, so it's hard to complain too much. All right, so the next image we see is a truck pulling a cannon. And there's an explosion going off in the poster. There is, not in what we see here. And if you look carefully as it whips from the pilot to this, you can see a little bit of what it says underneath it. What it actually says is, "Let's pull together to keep them pulling for victory." So just
it's impossible to read them without the like transatlantic. There we go, boys.
Yeah, keep them pulling for victory.
Yeah,
pulling
keep
for
America
victory.
American. This is Daniel. He's already dead.
Now, the next one, as you already called out, is, in fact, the We Can Do It, Rosie the Riveter. Now, what I wanted to talk about this one a little bit because I find this interesting, and I had never done research on Rosie the Riveter before, or the We Can Do It poster. But what's interesting about it is they weren't actually connected at all. In fact, this poster is not Rosie the Riveter. Rosie the Riveter you can see on a Norman Rockwell painting, and there was a song, Rosie the Riveter. This poster was actually designed by Westinghouse to be used internally just to inspire their workers to work. They hired this artist, J. Howard Miller, in 1943 to create some posters to use in-house just to get the workers working. And there were things like, "Together we can do it. Keep them firing. Any questions about your work? Ask your supervisor." And then this one, "We can do it." And they were just...
I think they should have used the "Ask Your Supervisor" for the end credits.
Don't leave milk in the fridge. All right.
Never eat anything bigger than your head.
And so
also, shut the hell up, all of you.
Get to work.
Oh, there's so much fun. So this one actually...
Well, I never knew that.
Was specific. I didn't know either. And it was actually very... like people during World War II hardly ever saw this unless you worked at Westinghouse Electric. And it actually didn't start kind of coming out until the 80s as a way to kind of promote feminism. And the whole image became kind of very iconic at that point. So decades after it was actually used. And then politicians started using it, and it just kind of became a huge thing. But this poster is actually one of the 10 most requested images at the National Archives and Records Administration, showing how popular it is.
Wow.
And the whole Rosie the Riveter element of it kind of ended up getting added to it because of this Norman Rockwell painting called Rosie the Riveter, who, I mean, you know, she has a similar look. She's wearing a red scarf on her head. She's wearing a blue shirt. But in the painting, she's sitting on a bench and she has a jackhammer in her lap and she's eating a sandwich. She's like on her lunch break. But Norman Rockwell is very, like, his family is really keeps all of his property they keep their grips tight on the copyright. And so they weren't able to use it a lot. And this, really nobody was protecting it all. And so they kind of ended up kind of crossing the two. And that's the point when it started becoming known as Rosie the Riveter in this particular picture. Yeah.
I love that.
That's fascinating.
So, yeah, 1982, I think, is about when that crossover happened. So, very strange, but I had no idea. And now you know.
She's at the Saturday Evening Post cover is fascinating. Like, she's sort of cherubic, curly red hair. She's got the goggles on her forehead, like you said, eating her sandwich, looking off into the. It looks like she's looking down on something. But it looks sort of playful, a little bit more playful than the sort of severity of the "We Can Do It."
Yeah.
We Can Do It, the Riveter. It's really interesting. I've never seen this image before. She's also buff.
Yeah,
like, this is
seriously. Yeah,
you don't want to come across her in a dark alley.
She can do it
late at night.
Yeah. She's a superhero all on her own.
She's a superhero on her own. Yeah, she's serious.
So that's Rosie.
Yeah.
And next we have a row of men holding giant munitions, just these huge bullets or things for cannons. I'm not exactly sure, but they look like giant bullets. And this one says, "Keep them coming, and coming right." They want their... they don't want bullets that don't work, apparently. Yeah. I guess that's what they're selling there. At first, when I saw this, I wasn't paying attention. And I actually thought that when Dominic Cooper's name popped up, that it was just a giant pencil that the guys were holding.
It looks like it.
Yeah. Once you get past it, it looks, it kind of looks like a pencil. So,
well, and it totally skips Sebastian Stan's name. It's like they've double dutied that poster by putting Stan and Cooper on the same frame.
Yeah. Yeah. They do that a few times. Like Tommy Lee Jones and Chris Evans are both on the same airplane.
Yeah. And then the bullets fire.
And then you have all the tanks. Now, I was going to quiz you on all the flags on these, but I didn't have a chance to start looking all of them.
Okay.
But it is a whole bunch of cannons. They're all shooting straight up into the air. And the poster says, "United we are strong. United we will win." So very much a poster promoting working with our fellow countries to fight against the Nazis in World War II.
Adorable.
Yeah.
Adorable.
Just adorable. And then we move on to, now this next poster, I couldn't quite figure out. This is the one that I was really struggling with. It's a guy on top of a tank when we see Neil McDonough's name, and then we kind of zoom out and we see some soldiers running. We pan up and we see some planes. I could not find a poster that had this in it. And so it was a little frustrating, but I did find something that was similar. And I'm like, well, maybe they kind of pulled from it because they were changing things anyway. If it is, it does say, let's keep the offensive rolling, keep America free. So then we cut to the red guy. I just call him the red guy because
Tucci.
He's a guy who's all red. He's holding a gun. And yes, this says Stanley Tucci. And this one says, "Keep it up, brother. This war is not won by a damn sight."
What? Who writes these? This war's not done. That's never been slang.
This war is not won by a damn sight.
That's not a thing.
This was the War Production Drive Committee who had sponsored this one, getting it made. So
that's great.
Funny.
Yeah, and then the last one we see here, it's actually the man throwing the grenade, and it says, "Let him have it. Buy extra bonds." This is promoting the 4th war loan campaign, because I didn't realize this. There are actually 8 war loan drives conducted from 1942 to 1945. And by the end of the war, 85 million Americans had purchased $185.7 billion worth of war bonds.
Wow.
Back then?
That's significant. That's crazy.
That is a lot. That is a lot. So that's all money funneling into the government to help pay for the war. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you brought up someone throwing a grenade, I like that when he finally, the thing that gets him over to get the job to be Mr. America is when he throws himself on that grenade that Tommy Lee Jones throws. And they had to do a finest hours. Did you hear in the background someone goes, "Dummy grenade"? And I was like, because one guy was like, "I don't get it."
Dummy grenade.
Can you imagine being the person that has to go in and record that wild line? Just do it 3 times in a row.
Dummy grenade? It's not a real one. It's fake.
It's fake.
That's the image that they should have had Chris Evans on. The guy with the grenade. That would have been fitting.
Dummy grenade. Yeah.
Do either of you have a particular favorite of this bunch?
Well, I like the last one because of 2 things. First of all, he's all like lean and sinewy. It looks like he's been fighting a war and not eating for a long time, and that's like feels like it's very much the war to me. But also because now that I know that they've already had the Buy War Bonds poster earlier in this same minute, and now it's Buy More Bonds, and I think that's a charming bookend to this particular minute.
Keep
like,
it going.
You don't worry. See all the patriotism? You're not patriotic enough, right? Get back to work and whip out that wallet, civilian. So I like that.
My favorite poster would be a painting of the pitch meeting for these posters. Like a bunch of guys in shirt sleeves and like so much smoke. Like they're all smoking and stuff like that. So there's like, "Let me at them." No, that's not quite right. Like they just have this bulletin board with all these dumb, "Not a darn sight." Well,
as Kyle, when Kyle and Rob were on with us, Kyle pointed out that Stan Lee was actually one of the guys behind stuff like this. Although, what was his tweet? Do you remember? It was something about like, "Don't come back with STDs" or something like that.
It was not what you'd expect for Stan Lee in terms of getting his start. Yeah.
That was a strange way to kick off a career.
Be careful on shore leave, soldier.
Keep your mouth
shut.
A ship
in every port, also gonorrhea.
Keep your mouth shut and your pants on. For freedom.
For freedom. All right. So those are the propaganda posters. In this minute, we finish up with our casting directors, Sarah Halley Finn, Randy Hiller, and Priscilla John. And then we move into the cast. And I'm going to ask a question because in this minute, we have the cast in a particular order. And then in tomorrow's minute, we have the cast, but in a different order. And so I want to get a sense from the two of you, which order do you prefer? Or do you think, let's just say, since we're not going to be talking about them in the same minute, what do you think of the order? Did they mess it up? And I know it's all based on contracts and stuff, but I'm just curious how everybody thinks of this. Because in the way we see it here, it goes Chris Evans, Tommy Lee Jones, Hugo Weaving, Haley Atwell, Sebastian Stan, Dominic Cooper, Toby Jones, Neil McDonough, Derek Luke, Bruno Ricci, J.J. Field, Kenneth Choi, Richard Armitage, and Stanley Tucci. Do you like the order here? Going from Chris Evans, I mean, yes, it makes sense he's the first one.
Yes.
Tommy Lee Jones, second.
I think Hugo Weaving should be second.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, Hugo Weaving for second. Okay. And then Hugo Weaving for third.
I think Haley Atwell should be third.
Haley Atwell third. Okay, so you would go Chris,
Captain
Hugo,
Carter?
Haley. That's Agent Carter, correct.
Got it.
And then Sebastian Stan.
Yeah, I think. Well, maybe. Maybe, I mean, Tommy Lee Jones, in terms of like importance to the show, to the film, maybe Tommy Lee Jones. Sebastian Stan isn't that, like, he's not, I don't think he's as important as Tommy Lee Jones.
Not yet.
Not yet, right. So at this point, you would say Chris Evans, Hugo Weaving, Haley Atwell, Tommy Lee Jones, Sebastian Stan.
Yeah.
Now, what about Dominic Cooper?
Who is that?
Yeah, he's fine.
That's Howard Stark.
Daddy Stark.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So below Sebastian Stan. What about Toby Jones?
I'm okay with him next.
Below Dominic Cooper? I would put him above Dominic Cooper.
I'm with Andy.
Really?
I just changed my mind.
I mean, he's a bigger part of the movie, I think.
Yeah. No, I guess you're right. Are we going to be able to actually render these out in time to get them in the VOD release of this movie? These edits?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Are they still taking notes? I don't know. I have to call Kevin.
I would actually, I'm torn if I would put Toby Jones actually above Sebastian Stan, because I think that he plays such a bigger part in this film. I mean, I guess I'd leave Sebastian Stan 5, Toby Jones 6, and then Dominic Cooper 7.
Dominic Cooper.
Yeah.
No, I think next I do like going to the Howling Commandos next, and I like Led by Neil McDonough, and I'm actually on board with the and Stanley Tucci because Tucci deserves an and.
Yep.
And I think that's nice.
Okay. Now, so you're fine with it going Neil McDonough, Derek Luke, then we've got Bruno J.J. Kenneth. Now, the one that's thrown in there with the Howling Commandos is Richard Armitage, who, of course, plays the Nazi or the Hydra spy. Right, he is the one who is kind of lumped in here with the Howling Commandos.
I don't think he gets. I would drop him out of this run.
Really? Okay.
Get him out of the movie. No, guy, like it's fine, but he's last. Like he's very, very last. I don't think he needs to be grouped in either because he's not one of those guys.
Well, it was weird that he's grouped in. I mean, it's weird that they have Neil and Derek separate, but they're obviously the bigger names than Bruno, JJ, or Kenneth. And Richard, I mean, he's got a decent part, so you wouldn't put him in this section at all, though.
Well, the question is, does he, I mean, what the problem is he's grouped with the wrong people, right? Yeah. Maybe he needs to be grouped up with like Toby Jones or something like that, right? Like maybe it's, keep him with that and then let the Howling Commandos be their own thing.
Tommy, in case you're not sure about Richard Armitage, he plays in one of your favorite trilogies, The Hobbit.
Huge.
He plays
is he the one in
Oakenshield.
In the very beginning?
He's the main dwarf he's the one who gets the gem at the end and starts getting what's it called? Gem disease.
Yeah, he goes gem crazy. He's all Candy Crush in that cave.
What's the name of the Game of Thrones actor in the very beginning? When the tank runs through the cave.
Yeah.
He plays like a really jerk king of Game of Thrones, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. He's David Bradley. He was also very well known from the Cornetto trilogy.
Got it.
I mean, Cornetto and Harry Potter.
Yes. Yeah. All of that stuff. So, but he's not in here. But would you include him? My next question was, is there anybody else that you would say they're important enough to the film that they should be one of these special names at the top?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, who's that, Pete?
Lex Shrapnel.
Lex
Gilmore
Shrapnel.
Hodge.
Oh, all right.
Lex
Pete. Yep.
That sounds like
100%.
Yeah.
He is the greatest cutaway like reaction shot face of the whole movie. He is the most disappointed alpha every time.
Oh, I wish that he had more to do. I really do, because he's just it would have been a fun part to continue. Tommy, is there anyone else you would add in based on the half of the movie?
I think I'm pretty good.
You think you're good? Okay. All right. Well, I think that's pretty good. We'll talk about this more tomorrow when we get into the rest of it.
Oh, Andy, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Stop the press. Wait, before you submit your notes. What about Leander Deeney?
Well, so Tommy, Leander Deeney played Puny Steve. He was the body for the small Steve.
Well, that's interesting.
Rogers.
And he was also the bartender at one point.
And he does come in and play the bartender. That's an interesting one. I could see that. I could see him being credited in the beginning because he does play such a critical part of it. I'm totally fine with that.
I feel like maybe he needs to actually be number 2 after Chris, but the font needs to be a little smaller.
He's like just peeking his head over like the plane. Did they?
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Do you remember in The Social Network, did they give Armie Hammer's the other guy that played other Armie Hammer like credit up top? Okay.
Up top, no. I don't believe so, because I believe he was only in it as he played a guy who came to the door at one point as an actual, like, just a character who knocked on the door, and I think he may have only been credited as that, and then as body double.
As body double.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. What was his? Now I'm checking. Josh Pence. He was credited actually as Tyler Winklevoss. So that.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's an interesting one, because that was that was a full performance by Josh Pence as Tyler Winklevoss, and then they just replaced his face with Armie Hammer. Whereas in this film, Leander Dini was
just the physicality
morphed. Well, no, he was the small body, but they also did a lot of there were a lot of things that went into the tech to kind of do this, like morphing the body, and sometimes it was just Chris kneeling on something, and then they would just digitally thin his face up,
shrink
things like
his
that.
neck. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a whole other thing. But yes, I do think that Leander Dini. I mean, hey, come on. If Josh Pence could have been credited for Tyler in Social Network, why not?
Agreed.
Leander Dini for this film. Here. What about the Senator Brandt, Pete? And Tommy, you've probably seen almost all of his performance.
Right.
Yep.
That's really interesting, Andy. I don't think I would give him much credit up front here.
Me either.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think his part is enough.
It's not a complex role, but he does have some big scenes, where he's pitching the whole thing to Steve and everything. So
yeah, I mean, I guess, but
he and Private Lorraine.
So did Private Lorraine.
Well, in the credits, he and Private Lorraine. Well, let's see. It's Gilmore Hodge, Senator Brandt, Brandt's aide, and Private Lorraine are the four actors who are in kind of the top supporting role lineup.
Yeah.
Before it gets to the bit players. So there are really those four and Leander Dini who don't make it into this.
Yeah, that's that, and I think that's fine. I think they're all great, and I don't know that they merit a war poster.
I'd argue that they just all need better agents.
Yeah.
Both of those things can be true.
Yeah, yes, exactly. All right. Well, we end this minute starting to get kind of those the end of the opening credits, Paramount Pictures and Marvel Entertainment present. And that's kind of where things end. So let's kind of continue this conversation tomorrow. We will jump back into some more stuff and see where we go from here. So what do you think?
Sounds good. Yeah. See you tomorrow, gents.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Tommy, as I mentioned up front, you are the director of 30 Nights of Sex to Save. I feel like it should be what's that Woody Allen movie?
Sleeper.
Everything you always want to know about sex. Parentheses,
we're afraid to ask.
But we're afraid to ask.
Yeah.
I think because of the way that it got retitled by Amazon, right, to just 30 Nights?
By our sales agents.
Well,
we wanted it to be 30 Nights, and that's how it was supposed to be. And then we're actually just 30 Nights of Sex in certain countries. Something that I had write in the contract. This cannot be the name of it here in the States, and some places it is.
I saw it in Brazil, and it's called "To Save Your Marriage?" 30 Nights of Sex.
Yeah, it's all over
the question mark's really important.
Yeah,
that's funny. But anyway, it is out there and people can check it out. So where can people find it these days?
We are in transition. We were on Amazon Prime for a long time now. They're switching us over to something else, I think to Freevee, but we are on Tubi. You can find it for free on Tubi, Tubi, and that's a real
Tubi
place.
Before you moved to Freebie?
Yep.
Tubi Freebie.
You moved from Amazon Prime to Tubi before you moved to Freebie?
Right. And then the next in line is Scooby. And then we just keep going down.
And then Doobie.
And then Doobie, yeah. The all scat channel. Yeah, so check it out.
Yeah, so check it out, everybody. It is a very fun movie. And that's it. So we'll be back tomorrow. Tommy, thank you so much for joining us to talk about credits today. We certainly appreciate it. You always make it fun.
My pleasure.
And Pete, thanks as always.
Maybe tomorrow we'll find out who played Loud Jerk.
Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Spread the News by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, consider doing that for this show.